So today I want to have a very deep talk about the Grammys' new announcement of having an Asian pop category. I want to talk about if this is recognition or is a separation. So I'm not simply trying to say I support this or I'm against this. I just want to see it from the both perspective and how is this going to affect our favorite K-pop artist or just Asian music artists in general, and how this is reflecting America's society right now. I feel like there's a lot of deep insights we could talk about. So, you know how Grammy, they have multiple categories, and they just announced that they're going to add 5 new categories to their awards. And one of them was Asian pop music, alongside with other ones like R&B duo category and things like that. And this is actually really, so to break it down just a little bit, we have to first know what exactly are they talking about when they say Asian pop music. Because this is going to be the main point of the video, but isn't that term already vague? What do you define as Asian pop music? So let's see what they first said. If you go to their website, they announced the new categories and best Asian pop music performance. This category recognizes artistic excellence, blah blah blah, whatever. It says recognized within Asian market, including but not limited to K-pop, J-pop, C-pop with meaningful use of one or more Asian languages. Okay, so the key here is they explicitly mentioned K-pop, especially as the first one. The ordering of the wording also matters a lot, where most of you guys who watch my stream and video are K-pop fans, but me, myself, as well as some of the homies here, love J-pop as well. And I'm sure you guys like C-pop, any other Asian music in general. And K-pop is big, but at the same time, J-pop isn't small either. And the key point here is, how do you define it? And they said right here, meaningful use of one or more Asian languages. So if you go more into detail of it, they have like a detailed guideline. You must use Asian language.
It's so Grammys can other BTS and other Asian artists so they don't win in the main categories.
I understand why you're saying this. It's totally understandable, but I'll go into detail where this might be true, but it also might not be true. So the key here is they're separating by language, essentially. Because if you simply separate by nationality or race, you guys know how even the idea of race is vague? At least nationality, there's a legal documents behind it. But if, let's say for example, someone who was born in Korea, but they're black and they speak full Korean and they make music, is that black music or is that Korean music? You see, it's already very difficult to define, which is why I think they intentionally specified saying they need to have an Asian language. And it can't just be like throwing in there like 1 or 2 words. It has to actually have a significant meaning. It also can't be just ad-libs. So on top of my head, the song that came into my mind immediately was 7 by Jungkook or 아파트 by Bruno Mars and Rose. Those songs, or Golden, you know how these are one of the most iconic songs in the K-pop pop field right now that got recognized in America? At the same time, these songs won't qualify for this category, which I think my immediate thought was, this is good. By the way, I'm going to talk about the bad parts too, but my immediate thought was, this is good, because one of the things I've been very disliking about recent movement in K-pop is they've been removing more and more Koreans. And there's so many reasons behind this. There's also an issue of breaking through America's radio station, because you know how in other countries, not just in America, but especially America, language is a big barrier. As in, it's not about whether people like it or not. The distributors, they just won't deliver the music. They just won't consider it if it has non-English in it. I'm pretty sure if you guys come from different nationality and different language background, you would understand this. Which also makes sense because English is the dominant language of America. I'm not saying this. I don't necessarily think is unfair, but we have to go more in detail. So I feel like maybe this behavior might encourage K-pop to use Korean more, which as Korean person and as person who enjoy Korean lyrics in K-pop music, I think this is very nice. Even though I love songs like Dynamite, I love songs like 7, I love all these English sang songs, the Korean ones, they just hit different because ultimately there is a nuance difference when it comes to language and also the pronunciation difference, where if you sing a full English song as a K-pop group, I feel like you're differentiating like your special quality of being able to write your lyrics in your language and express in different tone, like those things get hidden. And you just simply get compared with only English singers. It almost feels like as if you have additional weapon, but you can't use it because the stage doesn't allow you to use it. You guys know, I don't know if this is like a good example, but you know those like fighting, professional fighting? You know how there's rules? Like you can't use your elbows, you can't use your knees. It's like that sensation. Whenever these K-pop musicians have to come to America, or even Japanese musician, then they have to follow this rule where, oh, in America, you can't use your elbows, like you can't use your Korean stuff, you can't use this, you can't use that. So I actually think this is a good sign. So let's continue. And the other categories are Best Latin Song. This is also interesting. We'll talk about Latin music and Black music because Black music and Latin music is very good examples that we could see how this might go in the future, because those were introduced before this Asian pop music. And if there's any Black person or anyone who enjoys Black music, I'm sure you guys are aware of the discrimination, of the categorization, separation of Black music in Grammys. I think it's actually like a whole another essay that we could write about. In fact, it's easier to only talk about Asian pop music. But all right. So I personally think my first thought was positive, as in, you guys ever get that sensation where your favorite group is really talented and they're really famous, but at the same time, BTS is so famous, or Stray Kids is so famous that any awards out there, you don't have a chance. Like you already know your group doesn't have a chance because the size of the group is so different. You know, like you're not hating on those groups. In fact, a lot of people love those groups and there's a reason behind it. It's just that you want your groups to also be recognized, but it's just bad timing. You know, Blackpink, BTS, Stray Kids. I have to acknowledge this first. If they weren't there, the groups that are less popular than them wouldn't have been at that position. We have to first agree, BTS, Stray Kids, Blackpink, or even Big Bang, these previous big groups have pulled up the other groups to current reputation. So I'm not saying like, they should get out of the way. It's more so of, I understand how you might feel a little bit disappointed that your group doesn't get the recognition. I think having a separate category is a really good opportunity for recognition because, you know, people usually tend to focus only on the winners. But at the same time, being nominated is already a big honor, not just for Grammys, but if you think about it, for Nobel Prize, for even, you know, World Cup that's going on right now, you don't necessarily need to win the World Cup for the country to be happy. Some countries are simply happy that they passed it through the elimination round. So I feel like there's a lot of fandoms out there where their goal is not to win the Grammys. Their goal is to have their group nominated for Asian pop category, because now you actually have a chance. Like, you see what I mean? You see what I mean? Because nomination is more of recognition, in my opinion, than popularity. You could have much smaller fandom, but if the work is good enough, you could easily get nominated. Usually the winners, it's hard to pick a totally smaller group or totally smaller artist because, you know, there'll be backlashes like, how could you pick this over this? But nomination, no one really complains too much because there's also multiple nomination. So I think this is, in that sense, is great. But now, let's go one at a time. There's K-pop, J-pop, and C-pop. We did make a separate category, but my first thought is, this is such a packed bus. You see where I'm coming from? As in, I understand why from America's perspective, they would do Asian music. But at the same time, as someone who enjoy Korean music and Japanese music, or other Asian music, trying to put K-pop and J-pop on same category is such a big integration. You see where I'm coming from? There's such a... Honestly, obviously as a market, US market is much bigger. But as a genre's influence, J-pop, K-pop is on par with American pop. Do you guys agree? Maybe the market share might not meet because of populations and other things, but they're on par. So imagine if someone put Latin music and US music under same category of American music, like North, South American music. Then you might be like, you can't put Brazil, Paraguay, Canada, Mexico, and US all in America. Like, that's kind of how we feel in the musical world. And now I also want to acknowledge this is Asian pop music, but okay, are Indians Asian? Yes, they are. But are they Asian? As in, do people usually use the term Asian for Asia? No, we don't. When people say Asian, they're usually most of the time referring to East Asians. Do you guys agree? So recognition is great, but what about Southeast Asia? Philippines? Indonesia? What about India? Vietnam? Like all of okay, I don't think we should be complaining too much. By the way, this is not for me to complain, and I think in some sense Grammy is taking one step at a time. Guys, it's good that we're taking one step at a time, but it's almost like Columbus discovering America for the first time. What I mean by that is, it's almost as if American people are discovering Asia for the first time. So they first discovered the East Asia, but then there's like so much more that we haven't even touched and we are not even aware of. And okay, you know why I didn't even say Middle East? Because even the term Middle East, I don't know if anyone here have ever thought about this. I'm going to go back to the Grammy talk. Let me sidetrack just a little bit. Have you guys ever wondered why a Middle East is called Middle East? When I learned that you guys call that area Middle East in English, I thought, what do you mean Middle East? Like, where is it East and where is it Middle? Because in Korean mind, Middle East is West. So I kept thinking like, East? Like, East? Yeah. And what's so interesting is, in Korea we call it Center Asia. Center East is what we call it. Well, actually, I see what I mean. Like Middle East, Center East. But that's probably based on the English definition of Middle East. Anyway, so there's so many Asia to acknowledge. Asia is the biggest continent on planet Earth. So putting Asian pop music as a category, you see where it's coming from. But again, this is not for me to complain. Let's just go step by step at a time. Another fact that we have to look at is I did the research, and this doesn't go under global music. It goes under pop and dance electronics field. Guys, this is really important. So the global field, in my opinion, is sort of considered almost like a minor league, as in it doesn't get much light in comparison to the pop and electronic field. The pop and electronic field is the main awards that people pay attention to. So this is sort of a good sign for Asian pop music, because this isn't just smaller trophy they're giving. They're basically saying we're going to get one of the main categories. So that's a good sign. Do you guys agree? That's good. But then, what exactly is meaningful use of Asian language? And the first group that came into my mind was Cat's Eye. Or you could even talk about Santos Bravos, because I know these groups don't claim themselves as K-pop, right? But at the same time, when you define, what they said here is they're defining market and influence, or an XG, or N-Team, or NCT Wavy. Like, there are so many. There's so many of these groups where, how there is these K-pop influenced musicians, and I think it's free for them to define themselves as however they want. Guys, all musicians should have the right to be able to call themselves, oh, I'm this musician, I'm hip-hop musician, that's what I believe I am, or I'm K-pop musician, I'm J-pop musician. That's up to them. But in terms of market influence, we can't deny that groups like Cat's Eye has been influenced by K-pop. Do you agree? Then when it comes to award, where would they be categorized? And I think most likely with groups like these, they won't be categorized under this category, because one of the requirements is using Asian language. Actually, XG might be a little bit different, but Cat's Eye won't, because I don't think Cat's Eye has a Korean song, do they? I don't know them too well. Please tell me if they do. And you know what I also find interesting? The groups who have not used Korean or Asian language, wouldn't it be kind of surprising if you see them suddenly releasing a song with Korean in it? Oh, they do have one. They don't? Or it's like a mixed. What do you think? Because then it'll be like, did they do this so that they could qualify for this category? But then at the same time, can you really blame them for that? They just want to use certain language. And wouldn't it be also funny if all the K-pop comebacks all of a sudden includes a Korean verse all of a sudden? Like all of a sudden everyone became a Korean lover. So I don't necessarily think it's cheating. Well, because you always have to free with art. And if you make good art, then language is your choice. So So going a little bit further, now I understand. So as a result, guys, I understand why they categorize it with language. But be real with me. So you're telling me Butter is not K-pop? So you're telling me Dynamite is not K-pop? Be real with me. That's the Korean national anthem. That's the Korean national anthem. So it's a little ironic if it's judged by the language. Like 아파트? Guys, 아파트 charted in Korea for how long? Like the entire year. It wiped the charts in Korea. You go to any, convenience store, whatever, beauty store, Olive Young, 아파트, 아파트. And also, 아파트, 아파트? Does this make the cut? Like, do you see what I'm talking about? Because 아파트 is apartment. You guys knew that, right? Just making sure. It's an apartment game, like 아파트 game that, drinking game that you do in Korea. I feel like you guys might not know this. 아파트. That's a drinking game in Korea. That when we gather up together and drink, we play that game and decide who drinks. Oh, we know? Okay, sorry. I thought you guys might have not known. Have you played that game? Anyway, so I personally felt her saying 아파트, that sounds Korean in my ears. I know it's originally, obviously, apartment, but can American person recognize if I go, oh, where's the 아파트? They're going to be like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about, So I feel like when it comes to categorizing, could be a little iffy. I also feel like there might be a case where they might let the popular songs slide. Do you see what I mean? So if the song is popular, they might just be like, yeah, you could go in here, like kind of like that. But we'll see how it goes. I wonder how strict they'll be with the cut. We'll have to see that. And not to mention, another thing is, I don't know if you noticed, generally, the less globally popular group tend to use more Korean. I don't know if you guys are fans of maybe Zero Base One, Tuos, or Alpha Drive One, even some 80s. Like, I'm not saying they're small, but because they're more domestically focused, they tend to use more Korean language. And maybe they have a higher chance. And another thing is, okay, going back to mixing of K-pop and J-pop. Again, I'm sorry I'm not acknowledging C-pop, T-pop, Vietnamese pop, I'm simply categorizing the K-pop and J-pop because they're the biggest horses. How do you put Yonezu Kenshi next to BTS? How do you put Ado next to Blackpink? Like, what I mean by how is, where does it match? Because cultural influence-wise, Yonezu Kenshi, I don't know if you guys ever heard of his name. He's the king of J-pop, like without doubt. Yonezu Kenshi is, I could say he's even the Michael Jackson of J-pop. All J-pop right now, he's the king. He's the center of it. In the same sense, I feel like BTS could have that title. But I love Yonezu Kenshi's music. Number-wise, BTS is probably dominating. So does that mean in the category, K-pop is always going to wipe these awards? I feel like in a perspective of fan of J-pop music, that won't feel fair because there's no more culturally significant musician than Yonezu Kenshi at this time in J-pop. But if they simply can't meet up to the K-pop's number, Grammy isn't supposed to be a popularity award, then you know what happens? Then imagine, if they give the award to Yonezu Kenshi, imagine how ARMYs would feel. Like, we're literally standing here, like imagine, like BTS is so successful, or like Stray Kids. You know how Karma album wiped the records in the album selling. Karma album sold so much. They're one of the most sold album. Imagine your stay and then Yonezu Kenshi wins. You'll be like, do you not see the number of albums sold? You see, like, how is this possible? So I feel like it might even make a beef between K-pop fans and J-pop fans over this category, which now we could start to go into the negative aspect that someone has mentioned and we all thought since the beginning. Is this recognition or is this separation? Another thought that came to my mind immediately when I heard about this news is, I see. They don't want to give K-pop the main award. I see what they're doing. Anyone else thought the same thing? K-pop has become basically hard to ignore. I think that's actually the exactly right term. They try so hard to ignore, but they just became more and more popular that it became an elephant in the room. Do you guys agree? And now they're like, there's an elephant in the room. And if we're talking about numbers, I feel like K-pop should have been winning before. You guys agree with that? Like, commercially, it's not necessarily that weak. But now, if it comes to US influence and, other things, that's the reason why it sort of has been like slower relatively. So it makes me think it reached a threshold where my mind thinking, oh my gosh, do we really need to give BTS Grammys? Can't we just make a separate award? You see where I'm coming from? We really have to give Stray Kids Grammys? We don't want to do that. Like who's Blackpink? Like, that's what makes me feel. Or that's what some people might feel. Do you know, I actually think, by the way, I'm not totally negative about this. There is a totally valid reason for this. Do you guys want to know a really shocking thing? So in Grammys, obviously, you know how there's a rap category? category? That seems like obvious, right? Do you know when the rap category was first introduced in Grammys? It was back in 1989. Okay, that's like a long time ago. Interesting. Do you know what happened when Grammys first introduced rap hip-hop section into Grammys? What they did was they gave the award and they didn't air that onto television. Can you believe that? I mean, you can't imagine that in 2026, but they simply passed it. They gave the whatever little award thingy and they didn't show it on TV. Yeah, a lot of the awards don't get aired and it was one of them. So what's the point of giving an award if you're not going to give the recognition? Then you know what it becomes? Like, it's much worse feeling when you get invited, quote, quote, invited, and you go all the way over there and then they toss you this not actually gold, like plastic looking award thing. Good job. You did well for non-American. But then we don't really care, so go home with that award and be happy. Like, you see how salty a lot of musicians could be? And just to, I think black musicians have fought for this so long in America. Whether it's R&B, whether it's hip-hop, also in the urban category. I remember actually seeing this. Tyler, the Creator, won the award for Igor album. And I think he says something about he doesn't like the term urban music. He says putting something under urban just feels like a nicer way of calling black music. And I thought, can I be honest, until that point, I didn't even know what urban music was. As in, like, what do you call urban music? Apparently it's just like, it's not like a musical genre, like urban. Maybe it is, maybe I don't know. But so what they did is they changed up the name. They changed the name to, I think, contemporary R&B or something. Yes, which I feel like if it's music award, shouldn't it go by musical genre? But at the same time, I understand because K-pop is not musical genre in my opinion. K-pop is more of a cultural genre than musical genre, and music and culture, race, these are so close to each other. I understand why sometimes it feels like categorized by race and things. So here's the key point. In order to us to know if this is separation or recognition, you know what the key point is? Is we have to know when you get nominated to the Asian Pop Award, are they still going to be nominated for other categories like Best Pop Music? You see where this is coming from? Or if you get categorized there, then do you not get nominated at the Best Pop Music? I think the best example is actually Bad Bunny. You know how Latin music, I think the first time Latin music category existed in Grammys was back in 2000. And I believe there's also a Grammy specific for Latin music, like Grammys Latin. Yes. But there's also Latin category. There's a bunch of different categories. And at the same time, Bad Bunny not only won the Latin category, but he also won the Grammys main award. Yes. So in that case, having a Latin category, and for Bad Bunny, not only did he get recognition within his genre, but he also got the recognition as the pop star. So if, let's say for example, by the way, you know how I keep mentioning BTS over and over and Stray Kids? It's because honestly, they're the ones with highest chance. That's why I keep mentioning them. Obviously, you guys know I like groups like NCT Wish or P1 Harmony. You know I love like smaller groups. I love Cortez. I really want to see Cortez winning Grammys. I'll talk about this later in the video. This is like personal opinion. But as of now, the ones we could immediately expect is BTS, Blackpink, and Stray Kids. I think that's the three that we could expect. Do you guys agree? Yeah, I think that's the ones expecting so far. So, are they gonna try to give BTS only Asian pop, or are they gonna nominate them onto pop music as well? That's the question. Yeah. So we just have to wait and see. Because I'll be honest, Grammy and a lot of America's music, or just America's award in general, I don't want to say this, guys. Okay, genuinely speaking, as Korean who live in America, and different people feel different things about awards. Some people really want the recognition. Some people simply don't care. Some people don't even go to the awards even if they're invited. I'm kind of one of those people who don't really care. I feel like BTS doesn't need Grammys. Like K-pop doesn't need Grammy for us to feel like we have good music. People who enjoy K-pop already like the music. Having a Grammy or not, it's just like little like extra celebration for the fandom. Like we lived totally fine without it. They're selling tickets worldwide. You see what I mean? Like this is literally like a good job sticker. It's like good job sticker to what? Like 35-year-olds, you know? It's not necessarily that important. But hear me out. But I don't want to get into too much of a sensitive topic. but it sometimes just annoys me whenever like movie awards or actor awards or music award, when you feel this nuance of discrimination in different nationality, ethnicity, race, it's just annoying. It's just annoying. Also, like this sensation of these group of people who have privilege to make their own clique and only try to suck up to each other. Like, it's not even like we want that. Like, just seeing that is just kind of like annoying. And I think as a result, I don't know if it's just me, after I became certain age, I just never really watched those award ceremony. It kind of just felt like their own little party than like a global recognition. I swear, I don't know if it always been like that. It probably always has been like that, but at least when I was younger, I felt like it had a little bit more of a, you know, like recognition sensation, but it's heading more in the sensation of like, like babying their own. By the way, this is not just talking bad about America. Even awards in Korea have that tendency. You guys know one of the biggest awards in Asia is Mama. I think they call it MMA now. Mama or MMA. You guys are saying Mama's way better? I don't think so. Mama had beef with different companies like YG, SM, even like Korea's Music Bank. Are you guys aware? These Music Bank, each companies, they have like beef with BTS, and the groups would explicitly show we're not going on to this award ceremony. And like, I feel like I want to respect awards when they give awards objectively. But if they do this behavior where we're not close with them, so we're gonna ignore them and give everyone else the award, what is that? Might as well watch Hyomi's End of the Year award. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Might as well watch our award ceremony. Like, why bother, you know, listening to 70-year-old someone who has never even like heard the name of BTS members to like decide whether they're gonna win it or not? Like, just come here and like vote with us. So it's not about like caring. It's just about the annoyingness. Yeah. So even the Asian pop category, like, you know, like that bitter sensation. Because another thing, J-pop musician, K-pop musician, Asians in general, you know how Asians are less aggressive? Even myself, what I mean by that is when we get discriminated, we don't speak up. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm simply, this is, you know, kind of important at the same time. I'll explain the whole reasoning behind this. This is really deep cultural talk. As well as me, as well as a lot of Asian people, this is our mentality. It's like, if we get discriminated, we get it. Like, I see how it is. I see how it is. And we simply just sharpen our knife. And then it's a knife. We simply sharpen our knife and just try to get bigger, which is exactly what BTS did. You see what I'm saying? Because we know eventually you become unstoppably big, then they have to recognize you. You know, I think that's sort of like the only way to really fight against these annoying kind of discrimination. So Asians don't generally speak up. As a result, I feel like even if this whole Asian pop category, imagine this goes in the worst way possible, I doubt any K-pop, J-pop artist would stand up and say, I deserve the main award or something like that. Because, like I said just now, BTS or these groups don't care enough to bother demand their little trophy. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want it that much. Like, it's like if they don't give it, they're like, sure, like, your loss. In fact, the reason why they even made this category, in my opinion, is because people aren't watching these stuff unless BTS is in it. Like, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Like, they're actually depending on these K-pop musicians. Because, okay, obviously, American musicians have fans. They do. They do. I'm not trying to put them down. I love American music too. But undoubtedly, this is very specific to K-pop. K-pop fans' loyalty is nothing like any other genre. Do you guys agree? I genuinely can't think of any other genre that has higher loyalty than K-pop. Even non-K-pop fans would agree with this. In fact, that's why they don't like K-pop, because they think they're freaking out too much about just music. But as a result, when it comes to awards and things like this, a lot of other genre fans would just kind of like lay back and be like, oh, like he won the award? Nice. You know, kind of like that. But when it comes to K-pop, they actually wait, they actually vote, which is why, do you guys agree? Whenever there's any kind of voting awards, you agree, any voting awards, you can't beat K-pop groups like ENHYPEN, Stray Kids. You just can't. You just can't. You know what I also feel like? It's also the sensation of people actually care about K-pop artists. As in, a lot of the other music might be just consumed as music. You know, people who make music and I enjoy the music. But I feel like K-pop is consumed as music and the person, which is why it's so different. Yes. I really like that part, and they show enough charm to like them as a person. Do you guys agree? Like, this is just me, you know, praising just a little bit as a K-pop fan, as in the reason why the K-pop fans have so many loyal fans, it's not just cause they're handsome. I don't like when non-K-pop fans act like as if this is like a wrong bandwagon. It's like they just don't know what it is. They think, oh, young girls just like handsome boys. No. It's not the reason. American pop artists are extremely handsome and attractive too. Do you guys agree? But what's the difference? I genuinely think the difference is the dedication towards fans. How often do you communicate with fans? How often do you do content for them? How often do you perform? How often do you try to keep your behaviors to, not be incorrectly shown to public? Like those kind of effort is what makes this connection stronger, not just cause like plastic surgery, blah blah blah. I really feel like that's a really shallow type of analysis. And another thing is, most American artists just aren't interested in that. Do you guys agree? Obviously some are, but there's so many musicians out there who's just not interested in trying hard part. They're like, oh, I made the good music, pay me up, So like you can't expect you to have a loyal fan and win the award ceremony when, in the other hand, BTS is handsome and sings well and funny doing content and dancing practice and like you know what I mean? Like you can't try to like it's actually other way unfair if they simply win, I actually feel like because it's music and you know how music is hard to judge, that's probably why K-pop has been a little bit more underrated. But I personally feel like if this was like a award based on effort, I don't think K-pop lose to any other genres. In fact, I do mention and talk about this sometimes where K-pop's issue is more of overworking. You see where I'm coming from? Like the issue with K-pop is that these artists are pushed too far, sometimes not at their own will. Yeah, that's like a separate issue that K-pop has to deal with by themselves. But going back to the awards, so we'll have to see how the main awards go. Yes. And another part I wanted to talk about is African music. So there is a category called Best African Music Performance back in 2024. But guys, I've personally never been to Africa, but isn't there so many countries in Africa? Like just like the Asian music. When we say Africa, you know what it feels like to me? Again, I understand that you can't acknowledge everybody. There is a limitation. But why is it me that it feels like a slight ignorance? Like, you know what I mean by ignorance? As in, isn't that just Africa? Like, isn't that just Asia? Because they don't know what countries are in it. You see what I mean? Like, if they knew, then it might be a little bit more specifically categorized. But because they don't know / they don't care. So I don't know if it's because they can't and there's too many to acknowledge, or they just don't care. I can't tell. Yeah. Same thing with the Asian award. So I personally feel like I wouldn't have thought about all of this if the category was K-pop. Do you see where I'm coming from? Then I would have been like, none of this debate would have really happened. But putting Asian music, like that Asian term, like you see what I mean? Like Asian? Asian? Yeah. But alright, so coming to the conclusion, I think it's too early for us to be too happy about it or to be too upset about it. I saw a lot of magazines talking about like this is separation, not recognition. We don't know yet. Just we have to wait. And we have to wait about not just 1 year, but 3 to 5 years to see how they behave with this category. And it's just an award, but at the same time, I think it reflects America's society, as in how much is American society willing to accept. Like just, you know what the first thing that came to my mind is? You guys remember when Bad Bunny performed at the halftime show? You know how it kind of flipped America and people went through all these different reactions? What I want to see is, guys, I want BTS to win Grammys and see the entire country flip. Like, who the heck are these Asian boys? Like, I want that to happen. Yeah. Just to, in some way, like, rage paint some of the other, yes. And I feel like this is speaking for Grammys. Grammys, you might have some fun doing that. Because when you give these unexpected awards, you get these attention. Like, I don't know if they want attention, but clearly they're using some people for the attention. So, yeah, might as well. So I'm just curious how it's gonna go. Yeah. And again, I really wish I could see my other favorite groups there. I really want Cortez to win Grammys. Guys, I think Cortez could do it. They're young. They're so young. They have so many years. They have so much musicality. They have the potential. This is just their second EP. If they release maybe like first album, second album, third album, I really want to, as an army, okay guys, as an army, I want to see Cortez surpassing BTS, where I want to see the influence of K-pop growing bigger and bigger, where if you're a listener of K-pop, you no longer are minority listener. That's just how I feel. And I just love Cortez. I love Martin so much. I probably will have another time where I talk about strictly Martin. Even though I already did that, I want to have like a Martin fanboy video. Anyway, yes. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this award is a recognition and a step forward rather than a categorization and more of a headache here and there. But I actually think it's good. Yes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments as well.